Hey everybody, my name is Jordan Rudess and I'm the president of wizdommusic, and I'm also the keyboard player for the band Dream Theater. I'm sitting in front of my brand new app GeoShred, which is a collaboration between wizdommusic and the guys at moforte. I'm really very proud of this app. I feel like it's a true musical instrument for the iPad. I'd like to take you through the playing surface and kind of understand what we created here. So let's dive in. First of all, you have a very kind of cool grid. Our concept here was to have a playing surface that would allow you to really fly through the range or really access the full range of an instrument. And there's a lot about this that allows you to do that. We basically set it up so that it's like kind of like strings of a guitar. You can think of it as a violin or a bass. We think of the horizontal axis as like frets. So if you play like, you're playing half steps. The vertical can be really anything you want. You can have your own tuning, like if somebody would take a guitar and retune it to something else, you can do that on GeoShred. Right now it's tuned to fourths, so we call each horizontal line strings. It's very much a guitar kind of concept in that way. Starting here, if I play an E, if I go up to the next string, it's an A, which is a fourth above, and it's all in fourths. But it could be anything you want. And having that kind of layout really lets you fly through the that plus the octave switches allow you to really get around. The octave switches are very fast and easy to use. It's one of the basic functionalities that I really needed to be smooth and fast. That way if you go like, I can go like, I'm very, very picky with my octave switches because you play a lot of instruments and they don't really respond like that, but I needed them too. So that's a basic kind of controller. So you have the vertical and the horizontal rows that are like strings, and you can really get around the instrument. Let's talk about what makes this really unique. Spent a lot of time through the last years working on a kind of pitch intelligence, which is inside of GeoShred. And what that allows me to do is basically, it can be a completely fretless instrument. So you could play like this note and then just slide around. But the cool thing is that even if I'm looking directly at you, if my finger goes down on any spot, it's going to play a perfect diatonic pitch, right? So I go, and that's until I slide, it's going to be right on. So that's the first level of intelligence. It's kind of an initial attack, or snap we call it, pitch rounding. Then once I start to move my finger, like let's go and play this note, perfect A, and then I can start to do a vibrato, and it'll do exactly what I want and track my finger. So that's really nice, but here's where the magic comes in. Let's say I want to go from this C, and I want to go to G, and I want to slide, right? I want my first note to be completely in tune. I want when I slide and end up at the G, I want that to be in tune as well until I start to give it some vibrato. So what GeoShred will do is it'll tune the first note as we discussed, but when you get to your destination and stop, there's also this very cool pitch rounding that happens when your finger stops after a slide. It's like, imagine like a magic violin where you play a note and you move to another note, your finger stops, and wow, it's in tune. Well, that would be amazing. On GeoShred, it's a reality. You go from here, perfectly in tune, and then you can vibrato once you're there. Even if you're left or right of the middle of a key area. Every key has a little box around it, and in the center is technically where the in-tune pitch is. But GeoShred will fix that. And that's not something that you're locked into. It's something that we programmed per patch. So you can take advantage of the fact that I spent a lot of time trying to get a really musical result to make that happen. So the other thing that is really, really fantastic is there's this technology of what we call like octave rounding. Octave rounding is really, really a lot of fun. And when I show people GeoShred, I teach them an initial exercise to get used to it. So if I did something like this, I played C, D, E, and then I went to the next row up and I played F, G, and A. So that's a nice little pattern. Nice little thing to practice on GeoShred to get used to playing a major scale, at least the beginning of it. But if you put this little auto button on, something really cool is going to happen. So let's say we play C, right? And then we go D, E, F, G, A. Now we do that again. So watch what happens. Instead of going back down from the A to the C, it's going to go up. Oh, the pitch went up. And if I do it again, it'll go up again. And before I get too into the stratosphere, let's go back the other way. So before I tell you about this little magic trick, let me show you the kind of magical sound that it can create. Like, so you're really flying around. Now, here's one other thing that I like to do with it. Well, there's a lot of things, but let's do a whole tone type of a scale. So I'll play it all on one string or one horizontal line. I'll go. That's really, really a fun one. Just slowly, so if you wanted to try doing this at home, I'm playing notes that are like 2 spaces apart. So, and then the next hand, and then. But I recommend trying this one first. So what's happening in this is that GeoShred's brain is saying that whenever you try to jump to an interval that's above a tritone, like a perfect fifth, well, GeoShred is going to, in this mode, pick the shorter distance. So even if I play just like C, D, E, F, G, and then I go from the G back down to a C, that's called a perfect fifth. But GeoShred says, no, I don't want to go a perfect fifth. I want to go the fourth the other way. So that's why. So it's always going to pick the shorter distance. So that's very much what auto is about. So it can really get you through arpeggios fast. Like if I want to play a C major arpeggio, triad and arpeggiate it, and then do it again, and then go back the other way. Right? So it's a lot of fun. Also, some really cool playing things that are going on. If we look at the first patch, which is called Shred Lead, you can also see that there's this control surface at the top. And although it's completely configurable, a lot of times we'll keep things like this whammy slider up there. The whammy slider is ultra cool because you can play a note, hold it, and then with the whammy, do really what you can do on a guitar. It's a lot of fun, and it's also configurable for how many octaves you want the whammy to affect. The other thing you'll notice me doing a lot on Shred is accessing the harmonics, because GeoShred is based on a very advanced physical model. It's technology that my friends at Stanford University have been working on for many, many years. And actually what's really cool is we're taking physical modeling and bringing the thrust of it into the iPad, which has never really been done before, and adding things that people who are even familiar with physical modeling have never even seen before. So it's an opportunity to, on this amazing device, to really bring forth this technology in a very musical way. So what we have here is the ability to do like actual feedback. It's not sampling it, it's literally creating feedback. So if I play an interval like this, I play these 2 notes at the same time, and then I push up on the expression pad to one of the corners, it starts feeding And if you use the whammy, this nice little button here will actually kill the feedback if it continues to ring, because much like a guitar, if you put the guitar down, didn't mute the strings, it's going to feed back. So that's a little bit about the physical modeling, which we'll get into a little bit later. The other thing that you'll notice is as you go through the patches of GeoShred, every patch can have a really different look to it. That's because the playing surface is completely flexible. You can put as many rows as you like. You can have 2 rows, you can have 1 note on the surface. And you'll find that depending on the sound, we're offering you different ways to think about it. And if your fingers happen to be a little smaller, a little bit bigger, you can actually go in and customize the playing surface just by going to Performance Settings and going over to where it says Keyboard. And then you can say, you know, I want to change the number of strings. And you can just go like that and make the strings different. You can change the number of frets. So you really have a lot of control over the way each patch actually looks. And down here is where you can actually tune the different strings. So you can have like an alternate tuning, a dadgad tuning or something like that as well, which is really fun. And if you want to close out, you can look for the green button. You can hit it here or here, and that'll just close that menu. But what is cool actually is when you're playing, you can have the performance screen open, and you should know that if you touch somewhere, you can move it around. So if you want to audition something, but you want to play the notes that are on the other side, you can actually move this here and then so we can close out, and then we're back to normal. To change presets on GeoShred, it's really, really easy. All you do is you can touch the arrows and get through all the presets. You can actually press here and you can open up and look at all the sounds that are in here. And there's a lot of sounds. Had a blast programming this. And you can just select the sound you want. Like I'll select this one that's called Fripp or Finger Swell. It's a really fun one. And then add a little feedback. So that's a little bit about the playing surface. Let's go and look at some other things. Let's look a little bit more at the playing surface, because there's some really cool things that you can do that you'll want to know about. For one, you have 3 different modes of play. You have slide, guitar, and piano. And don't think that by pressing piano, you're all of a sudden going to get a piano sound. You're not. What you're going to get is something else. But let's look at slide first. And on this control surface, you can have the modes right there or not, but a lot of the patches do that. So slide mode will be very much what it sounds like. You're just sliding along. Totally fretless, very cool. So you can be that kind of slippery music that we all like to play. Guitar mode emulates what happens on a guitar when you move from fret to fret. So let's say you were going to go from here, this E, and go to B. So when you go, it's going to literally go kind of diatonically and jump, unless you're playing a fretless guitar. So it will do what you need it to do. But here's the little magic of it. When you get to your destination, you can still vibrato, which is amazing, because you think about this little diatonic movement from fret to fret, which is pitch accurate, but then at your destination, you can vibrato, which is, I think, really cool. Piano mode will not make your guitar sound like a piano. Piano mode is the way that we think about pitch and what we try to make this response like. So if you play from, let's say, here to here and use piano mode, it's very much like a piano. You're going to get no vibrato. It's going to go to every diatonic pitch exactly. And there's no, vibrato, expressivity in the pitch domain, which sometimes you want, depending on what you're going to do. My favorite is slide mode, although it's not always appropriate, but it's pretty cool. The other thing that I'll tell you about now is if you go into the performance settings, which at the top right is your menu, and you hit performance settings, you can have what's called legato mode. And we put legato mode there because legato mode is very much like what happens when you do a hammer-on a guitar or a pull-off. So if you were to play something like, let's take it off for a second and go, right? And I'm playing connected legato, and every time I play, you're hearing like the real attack of the note. But you wouldn't hear that if you picked once and then moved your fingers on a guitar. So legato mode is exactly that. So you pick once, and then it's like literally hammering and pulling off, which is very nice. And finally, I want to tell you about mono, string, and poly. Important to know about. With mono mode, it's like pretty much any other musical synthesizer where you can, no matter how hard you try, it's only going to play one note at a time. So no chords in this mode. In string mode, we call it string mode because it's very much like a guitar. You can only play one note at a time on a string. So if you tried to play two notes, let's say on this string, only one is going to sound. But you could, in this mode, you could do some cool things like this kind of trick where you go, which is always nice. So you can play one note per string, again, like a guitar or a violin. So I could play, down here, I could play this note and then. One note per string. In poly mode, you can play as many notes as you have fingers. So if you wanted to play F and A and so poly mode allows you to play as many notes as you like. So those are all the playability modes, the sliding, the guitar mode, the piano mode, mono, poly, string, a lot of flexibility there, and you'll find them in all the different patches as you go through. So have fun looking through that and watching the screen expand and compress and enjoy playing in all those different modes. GeoShred is based on physical modeling. There have been a lot of synthesizers that have come along through the years that have been using physical modeling, but you haven't seen a whole lot of it. And one of the reasons you haven't seen a whole lot of it, it's very difficult to harness the physical model to achieve the musical results that you want, and it's difficult for people to actually use physical modeling generally. So one of the challenges was to try to bring this very powerful technology to this very popular device and to harness it and make it a musical experience for the player and also for the user. So I spent a lot of time with my team looking at the depth of physical modeling and kind of being amazed at it, but also trying to figure out what kind of controls to offer to the user and what we really wanted to do with all of them. So I'm very pleased with the end result. There's a lot of things that are very deep, but there's also a lot of things that are kind of easy to get to, that are very appealing to get to. So let's take a look and see how that all rolls. Let's look at this classical guitar. If I want to get into the model, I just press on the guitar icon and I'm there. If I play a note, I had actually taken the release down a little bit, because if you play an open string on a guitar, it's going to ring a little more like, right? And you can decide that here. So on this guitar page, these are some basic parameters that we've seen before: volume, tuning, transpose. Although they do relate to the model, they're very familiar ideas. If we go into this menu right here under Instrument, these are our different models. You have a single coil neck, single coil bridge, etc., even going on to nylon and steel, so you can have some fun playing with that. But it really gets fun if you go into the strings menu. Here's where things get interesting. You can do things like this, where you can choose the material. Let's say you want to have this sound very much like a steel string guitar. So that's really the sound of steel. And this knob is called material. So as you change it and you move between steel and nylon, you're getting this very smooth kind of like organic throw between the materials. And so you get to nylon and back to steel. Right? So that's really, really fun and cool to play with. Stiffness is related to the harmonics. Every sound has harmonics. And what we do is we offer string harmonics, and we also offer bar harmonics. Like what happens when you hit a bar, like a mallet instrument. It's a really different set of harmonics. So you can kind of get in between anywhere you want. And stiffness is a very cool knob. So check it out. So I'll play something like... And if I take the release down, I can be like... So you're really in a different domain because all your harmonics have changed. So if the stiffness is changed to that, and you start moving between steel and nylon, really opens up a whole kind of new sonic world there for you. Let's bring our harmonics back to string and our material almost all the way to steel. And then let's look at pick position. It's a guitar model, so we've analyzed everything that happens with a guitar, and we have the ability to go in and tweak it. So with pick position, you're doing exactly what it says. You're playing with the position of the pick on the string. So this column is really cool, and fundamental boost will bring up the fundamental tone, which is very useful as well. The other thing on this page is feedback. This is one of the things that's really, really cool about the model. To show you feedback really effectively, let's just go to one other patch. This is one of my favorites. It's one of the first patches in here. It's called Fripper Finger Swell. Inspired, of course, by the old days of listening to Robert Fripp and the amazing things he would do with his guitar. But I love this patch because within our model, we're able to basically reproduce what happens when a guitar goes into feedback, when a guitarist walks over to the amp and they kind of like milk that sweet spot and they get all these harmonics. Well, GeoShred does that. It does it naturally. It's not sampled. It's not some weird effect where you're crossfading between one sound and the next. It really is actual feedback. So what you can do on this sound is when your finger first goes down, if you try this, don't be surprised because there's no sound. You'd be like, man, Jordan made a pretty lousy patch here. But if your finger goes down somewhere, then slowly push up. So you press and then, so you can really express. And one of the reasons that I have these big note areas, because I wanted you to have the room to. But let's talk about the feedback. That's why we're here right now. So if you use the expression pad, it's actually a pad that you can go vertically and horizontally and have different controls on there. And you can decide that within the editing environment. So if I press a note, and then I move my pad into one of the corners, and I play a little vibrato, wow, here comes all the feedback. Then I slide to another note, and I can bring it back to the middle, and kind of take the feedback down, and then push to the side. And you really have this thing that's happening so organically, and you have to control it, you know, so you play, and then add a little whammy. So feedback is a really integral part of what helps to make GeoShred a really sensitive and organic musical instrument. Let's go a little bit deeper into the model. This is the sitar sound, number 4. And if I go in to the menu and go to the model and pick the guitar, we'll go to the bridge menu and we'll take off enable and hear what the sound sounds like. Kind of cool because it's slippery and it's in slide mode, but it doesn't sound like a sitar. But if I enable the bridge just by pressing the button, that's much better. So you have a lot of control over the bridge. It's kind of like where the bridge is placed and how it's responding. Between these 3 knobs, you can really get a lot of musical results. So if we start to play with them a little, you can get very buzzy. And also can get very un-guitar-like if you want. There we go. Some of my favorite stuff is when you take the model and stretch it so far that it doesn't sound like a guitar anymore. It gets very fun. So that's just the sitar bridge. You can also turn on a tambura bridge and have some fun as well. So let's hear that. This is with it off. Here's with it on. That's fun. So those are the bridges inside the model. One of the reasons that GeoShred will blow your mind is because beyond the physically modeled guitar, we also have modeled effects. So let's take a look at that. This was one of my favorite sounds until I turned off all the effects. If I always played like that with that sound, I would not be known as the rocker that I am today. So how are we going to take that sound and really make it sound right? Well, if you look, we have access to a whole lot of effects. There's a nice variety of stuff here. Let's begin to check it out. I turn them all off. First of all, you have things like reverb, which if you look at, this is a very special reverb because it has my little animated character on it. And it also sounds really, really good, pretty simple to use. Anything that you want to mute, you can just touch underneath it. It'll mute it. You can close it out here. If you want to, let's say, go into the flanger, you can turn it on. It'll highlight, which is cool. If you want to look at it, press it in the middle, and it'll show you that. And let's put on some distortion as well. You can also just move these over. This will slide over, which is nice. So I put on this hex distortion. Right, if I want to change that, I can just tap on that. It'll bring it up. Looks familiar to guitar players especially. You can turn it off and on with the little switch here. We have chorusing, parametric. This, you can put a large number of effects in here and chain them as you wish. For this particular patch, I put on 2 distortions because 1 is never enough, right? Also a parametric EQ is there, very flexible parametric EQ, has 4 bands, you have a lot of control there. And I think, let's see what else. We can put on our echo. It's a very tight echo, but of course you can go into it and control it as you wish. So with all the effects on now, this sound is more like... And you can also add One of the things that's really important is to have the ability to control your parameters with your physical gestures. So we worked a long time on making it possible to do that on GeoShred. So in this example, what I'm going to show you is how we can use the y-axis of the playing surface to control various effect parameters. Basically, anything in GeoShred can be modulated in cool ways. So to do that, we want to go into our menu and we want to go to Control Surface. And now on the top left, you'll have the key Y. That has everything to do with what happens when you move along the y-axis of a key. So if you press on the parameter that's there, not of the X, that will clear out the parameter, but right on the one that's there, it'll bring up the menu of everything that's assigned to the y-axis. So this is really fun because I've got the stereo flanger rate and the chorus rate assigned here. So let's go into the chorus rate first. Let's hear this sound. There's a little bit of stuff happening, but let's go into the curve of the chorus rate, right? And let's draw something that goes straight up in a curve like that. So now when I move along the Y parameter, that you can, and you can track it with your finger. How about if we go up all the way and then back down? So moving on the y-axis, you go up towards the middle. At the middle of the screen, it's almost to the top. And then it goes down. Who would have ever thought a guitar physical model could make this sound? It's very Star Wars-like. It's appropriate because Star Wars just came out. So that's only one of them. Let's go to the flanger rate now and look at that curve. And I should say that one of the things that I asked my guys to do is to make all the rates in GeoShred go extremely fast into like frequency modulation, because I know you can get some really cool sounds by doing that. So we went out of the range of normal to make it possible to do this kind of stuff. So if I take the curve and I just bring it all the way down, so you get this. Definitely sounds like a lightsaber. So now let's do the same thing with the flanger. I go all the way up and back down. That sounds pretty cool. We can also use absolute mode. So if we go to absolute mode, it's a little bit different than the relative mode, which relative will be wherever your finger goes down, it will actually have kind of like an entry value, a starting point, and it goes from there. But absolute mode basically means that it's like 0 at the bottom and maximum at the top. So if I start, we look at the curve, wherever I press, that's where this is going to be. If I press towards the top, the line will be over to the right. If I press towards the bottom, it will be here. In relative mode, it's going to start at the same point every time, and then I move from there, and it moves. Anyway, to have those two modes is a good thing. So now, but in this patch, you should also notice that I have the volume pedal assigned as well. And so when I do touch a note, it starts at 0 and then moves up. So there's a lot of very cool sonic flexibility, being able to assign your y-axis like that, and not only just kind of control things, but really shape how every control is in time and in space as well. Let's take a look at curves. Curves are a really cool part of GeoShred and allow a lot of flexibility, and really it allows the ability to take this instrument way beyond what you'd think of as just a guitar instrument. So I'm going to go into this sound that I'm working on. I'm going to hit the menu, right? I'm going to go to Control Surface, and to get into the key step curves, you want to press here. I already have a few on here, so let's just press right there, and you'll see I have material, stiffness, and pick position. 3 very integral parts to the guitar sound. So the first thing we'll play with is material, and if I press that, it brings up the ability to have a curve and to draw. You can take your finger and just start having some fun drawing some really pretty things. Let's start out with something that looks a little bit like this. What happens in a key step curve is every time GeoShred gets a new note on a bit of information, it takes you to the next part of this sequence that we drew. So check it out. I'll play a note here, and you can follow this line that kind of moves from left to right, showing you every step of the way. right? So it's all the way down. If I play very fast, it'll go through fast. And you can have as many steps as you want, up to 128. If I want to just draw something really quickly like that, something crazy. And you can really begin to have a pretty good time, really getting some wild sounds going. And this is really without effects. I made this very dry so you could hear what's going on. And once we get into the effects thing, then it opens up a whole nother area of sonic possibilities. On GeoShred, you can have some very cool arpeggiation stuff going on, but you can also do some interesting strumming type things. And let me show you what that's about. If we go into the menu and we pick Performance Settings, if you look at the configuration page, mono mode intervals, this is where you'll be able to make it kind of do this nice strumming thing. So if it's off, not enabled, then I can be, and it's mono mode now, so one note at a time. If I turn it on, then you can set up different intervallic things to happen and have them strum. So right now I have something set with certain intervals. If I play one note, oh, it's lovely. And I can have different chords, right? Minor 7. And the separation time is cool because that'll be how quickly you're strumming. If it's slow, obviously you'll be like, right, faster. If you link that up with the arpeggiator, so now if I go to the arpeggiator and turn that on and play one note, control the speed, and change the number of octaves, so up and down. And I can go back to configuration and change maybe to the major 7. So that's a really fun thing to know about as well. One of the reasons that GeoShred can be very organic is that we put what's called variances in it. What variances allow is the ability to go in and have things actually move a little bit, have parameters sway within a certain range. So it's not so stiff. So let's take a look at that. Let's say we wanted to vary the material. So you go to the variances page, press material, and then if you just put up the knob a little bit, every time you hit the note, it's going to move the material around just a little. So each time you press a note, so you can decide how much you want that material to change. Put up the knob a lot, then you got that can get pretty interesting. You can also vary the pick position. Let's turn that on, turn material off. So now without variance, it's, if I start altering the pick position, so every note, so a little bit of material variance, a little bit of pick position variance, and you start going. Maybe a little velocity variance, put it down an octave. It's one of the ways to get expression going on GeoShred.